Once again, somebody from FDA stands between you and the bar. So we'll see what we can do to help. What I thought, all of you are deciding right now whether to hang around or not, so let me tell you what's coming and you can make an informed decision. What I'd like to do is talk to you all about a new addition to sort of a collection of end games, and I'll expand upon that, that have arisen in the regulation of both drugs and biologics, and some considerations and some thoughts in the value realization chain that have arisen as we move from discovery into decision phase development, commercial phase development, registration, launch, manufacturing, post-registration, process changes and continuous improvement. And so really where I'm going to go with this is frame a bunch of CM&C issues and manufacturing issues in the context of some very important clinical considerations. And get back to me in 30 minutes, we'll see if I succeeded in doing that. So before we move forward with this, let's see, I've got a clicker here. Click, click. Let's try this clicker. How about that clicker? First, the disclaimer, views expressed are those of the speaker. And should you feel moved to print out copies of PowerPoint presentations from 4 different FDA speakers given at 4 different conferences and set up time to meet with me at White Oak and wave them in my face, please don't do that. Okay, so obviously all policy is on the web. This is my email address. I tell my 16-year-old daughter, don't give your email address to anyone who's not your friend. This now makes us all friends, and I can speak openly with you. So as we go through and look at this, I was thinking about how am I going to put together a talk for this diverse an audience? And I thought, oh boy, everybody's interested in the road to value realization, so I'll use this road metaphor, right? And this is going to be really, really good. And I'll go through and I'll talk about all the different directions and choices. Then I'll use like the name slide. We name the same thing different ways, or the different things the same thing. And then I'll get Robert Frost, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. And we'll have a roller coaster ride, and then talk about success and failure. And that'll be a pretty good talk, huh? And as I was looking at it, I thought it's a really bad talk, okay? Because really, this is not what's going on. And this is not what's going on. That's not the world that we live in. Let's try this up here. How about that? Things are not binary in terms of success and failure, and neither are we on a track where we have no choice, where we can't move forward. We make bazillions of choices every day, sometimes with very limited data, based upon our experience, our aspirations, and frankly, a lot of risk-based decisions that we have to wait and see how they play out. That's really the world that we live in. Wow, look at that. I've got like a, who knows what that is. Okay, let's try this one up here. No? This is keeping you from the bar. Okay. Really what we want to talk about is chess, okay? We're in a highly regulated industry where there are lots of rules, where pieces can only move in certain ways, where we don't quite know exactly what's coming, what we react and what we respond to. We have a plan, but no plan survives first contact with the enemy, as they say. But also, a sonnet has 14 lines, and what enables the extraordinary creativity of the poet is the constraint. Constraint drives the creativity, okay? And there's an infinite number of ways to play chess. And who are we playing chess against? I assure you that it is not between FDA and the industry, okay? Really, we're all playing chess against residual uncertainty. We're playing chess against the constraints of our science and of our engineering and the practical elements of our business. We're playing chess against 1,001 possible outcomes, trying to get to the outcome that in fact we want, okay? So really when we go through and we talk about playing chess, when you talk to a kid about playing chess, where do you always start? You start out with the basic elements of where the moves are. What's the, protect the king, right? Now, this particular audience is an interesting audience because it is so diverse, and I'm sure that this audience is probably pretty accustomed to or pretty informed with the requirements of INDs and NDAs and things. But I do want to just take a couple of minutes of your time and want to talk about BLAs. And this will come back here in a second. So a few basics, just indulge me, okay? We'll get back to this because not everybody fully appreciates a couple of the nuances associated with the regulation of biological products in the United States. Biological products are a subset of drugs and are regulated by the FDA SIA Act. Biological products are also licensed under the Public Health Service Act. This means that biological products are regulated by both sets. It's not either or, okay? Now the PHS Act also provides the authority to suspend licenses or to retract licenses in situations that are relevant to the public health. In an NDA, a drug is approved. For a BLA, a manufacturing capability is licensed. The supply chain, the manufacturing site, the whole shooting match, okay, is licensed. So let's go through and what do I mean by biological product? Because again, it's been an interesting set of talks. That we go through, the BPCI Act actually revised the definition of biological product. And believe it or not, prior to 2009, proteins were not specifically listed as biological products. We've done business that way, okay? But in 2009, it says, any protein except a chemically synthesized peptide. Now, historically, there are a number of proteins that have been registered under the FDA SIA Act as NDAs. You know, an example would be human growth hormone, okay? And a bunch have been registered under the PHS Act. And what happened was with this revision of the Public Health Service Act, we want to clean all that up. Now, you can't make it happen like this, so Congress gave a 10-year window to fix it up, okay? So March 23rd, 2020, there's an expectation that things that meet the statutory definition of biologic are regulated under the Public Health Service Act, okay? We're working on it. So what does that mean? This is not a definition of protein that you're going to find in Leninger or in Stryer. And in fact, I'm not sure it's chemically defensible. But for all kinds of reasons, we needed to have a statutory definition of protein and polypeptide to enable us to enforce different actions. So for purposes of the statute, we've said a protein is any alpha amino acid polymer with a specific defined sequence that's greater than 40 amino acids in size. So it was interesting watching a lot of the presentations here that we've had so far because I find myself counting amino acids, okay? Similarly, what is a chemically synthesized peptide? Any alpha amino acid polymer that is made entirely by chemical synthesis and is less than 100 amino acids in size, okay? So, who reviews and approves BLAs? FDA. Well, but there's a little bit more to it. They can go either to CDER or CBER. I'm, of course, in CDER, okay? CDER reviews the applications for all monoclonal antibodies, therapeutic proteins extracted from plants, animals, or microorganisms, and the recombinant versions of those proteins, as well as non-vaccine immunomodulators. CBER has allergenics, blood products, vaccines, gene therapies, xenotransplantation products, and all of the accoutrement that goes into regulating the blood industry, okay? Now, in any case, a BLA is required to demonstrate basically 4 things. It's safe, it's pure, it's potent. So it's safe and it does what you say it's going to do, and that you can make it the same way over and over and over. And the reason for that is not statutory. The reason for that is you're going to develop this bucket load of data demonstrating that the stuff is safe and that it does what the label claim says, but you do it for lots number 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And we need to make sure that the data are relevant to lot number 5,672, or at least lot 40, okay? And so making it the same way over and over, make sure that that safety and efficacy data is relevant. And this is, of course, true for NDAs as well. So here's a take-home message. A BLA and an NDA is an exercise in technical advocacy, not in regulatory box checking. This will be one of the themes I'm going to talk about because we're playing chess. I own my moves. I get to make the case. The company makes the case. It's safe. It works, I can make it the same way over and over, and here are my data. So it's an exercise in coming in and saying, here's my stuff, and I'm going to prove it. Now, we're under a lot of different constraints on how we can prove it and how we can't prove it, right? A lot of different pathways. A lot of ways to skin the cat. So it's up to how do I prove it? Now, getting into the CMC world, there is no single thing which does that. Validation does not mean never having to say you're sorry. In fact, what happens is there's an overarching architecture of assurance that goes in and says we have a high level of assurance that we have predictable performance of our product and our process and the quality attributes. And it's based upon sound science and effective engineering. Okay? And you know, it's a funny thing that it's built upon the data, but you know, an accumulation, how to put this, accumulation of data is no more assurance than accumulation of bricks is a house, right? There has to be an organized advocacy to it. Very typically, there's no single thing that provides this assurance. There's lab data that we have early on, there's pilot data, there's site manufacturing data, there's stuff that comes from our quality systems. No single pillar, if you will, supports this house. And in fact, early in the ball game, you're not going to have a whole lot of manufacturing data. Some of the pillars are going to be weaker than others. So the others need to be stronger. For a legacy product, I can make the case the lab data become increasingly less relevant. So the other pillars have to be stronger. And of course, this architecture is strengthened further by lateral connectivity throughout the programs. So for instance, the development program is really what connects your laboratory data and your pilot data. The tech transfer package, it really connects the pilot data to the site, particularly if you go from several different sites. In fact, I'd offer for your consideration that the validation master plan, not the schedule, but rather the set of standards which assure reproducible processing, is the linkage between the quality management system and day-to-day operations. And in fact, different companies call it different things. I'm going to use the term process flow document, but most companies have a document that says, this is what the process looks like when it runs correctly. Here are the measures and metrics that tell me I'm doing the job right, that cuts across bridging the pilot plant data and the site manufacturing data and the quality systems by giving the why. We're between pH 4 and 6 because, footnote, very, very valuable packages. So we go through and we make a lot of choices about where we're going to invest our time and energy into those different pillars when, because nothing comes free, right? What choices are we going to make along the way, when we're going to do stuff, and to what level of investment of time, energy, effort, and treasure are we going to make? Okay, so let's talk about those choices. Because in order to make informed choices, we have to think about what's the end game. Where are we at? Now, when my hair was dark, we'd talk about what's at the right-hand side of the acetate. My kids don't even know what an acetate is anymore. Okay, but what is the goal? What is the purpose that you're looking at? Is the purpose of the exercise to get to IND? Is the purpose of the exercise to get the report submitted? Is the purpose of the exercise to submit your NDA or BLA? Is the purpose of the exercise to be bought? Is the purpose of the exercise to get the next infusion of venture capital? Is the purpose of the exercise to provide a steady, reliable, assured source of drug for a public? Okay? But we have to determine the purpose of the exercise and work backward. So in order to really understand the purpose of those exercises, let's talk about some different end games. Okay? In chess, there are about 14 end games. How about that? You know, we can argue about the pawn-bishop one, but throw me a bone. It's 14 end games. Okay, when we look at launching and registering drugs in the United States, there are several end games that can occur. And the ones that I want to talk about are accelerated approval, fast-track review, priority review, the abbreviated pathway for biologics, and breakthrough status. And I've picked these because I think there's a lot of confusion around them. Okay? After the talk, come up to me and say, Jeff, there's no confusion. We know what's going on, and it will provide me a great deal of assurance, you know, for me. But I think in my day-to-day job, there's a lot of confusion around this. So I'd like to try to talk about these if I could, because the end game that we play to will determine the road that we're going to take there. Moreover, because these are accelerated frequently and abbreviated, what happens if you can't build out your plan, your middle game, the way you intended? And for most of us CM&C jocks, I mean, don't tell the stock analysts. I love long clinical trials because that gives me a chance to sort out my control strategy, my manufacturing strategy, and really look in my knowledge space. When suddenly there's an announcement that we're ready to rock and roll, it can be a significant emotional event. You high-five each other and then sit in your office and say, now what? So let's talk about this. There's a very nice draft guidance that's out. I think that the draft status will be removed very soon. I ask your indulgence because it is under review and responses are out from the docket. I can talk about the draft guidance, but I can't talk about specific elements of the final guidance. But this is nonetheless very good reading, okay? A take-home message. The decision to expedite a development program is exclusively a clinical decision, and not everybody understands that, okay? It's based upon the needs of the patient and the performance of the drug in the clinical setting. There are profound CMC impacts, okay? But the decision is a clinical decision. Let's talk about accelerated approval. This was initiated in 1992 to allow faster approval of drugs for serious conditions that fulfill an unmet medical need. Oops. How do I go back here? Let's go back up. Accelerated approval is frequently misunderstood. It does not mean you get a faster review. And people freak out. What? I got accelerated approval. What it means is that the clinical trial is shorter. Okay, you have a drug that treats a serious condition and provides a meaningful advantage over current therapies and demonstrates an effect on surrogate endpoints that are reasonably likely to predict clinical benefit. It takes into account the conditions in the clinic, but it has to meet the same statutory standards for safety, effectiveness, and assurance of drug quality. So this is about the clinical trial, not about what's required for your manufacturing unit and what needs to be brought forward. Priority review. Remember, this is part of FDAMA, the FDA Modernization Act that came some years later. It's for a drug that treats a serious condition and if approved would provide significant improvement in safety and effectiveness. Every application that we get, we evaluate for priority review because that's part of the stewardship of the public health. When something comes in, we look at it and we say, does it meet these criteria? A sponsor may also request a priority review, okay? Come in and say, gosh, FDA, we're not sure you're gonna pick up on this. Look at this puppy, okay? We will grant a priority review or not within 60 days. It shortens the review timeline from 10 months to 6 months, and that's part of your user fee commitment. That's under the PDUFA regulations. Okay, so that's priority review. Fast track review, this is all in the guidance. A drug that treats a serious condition demonstrates potential to address an unmet medical need. There's expedited development and review. There's a lot of interaction and access to the review team in real time. Now, you may say, I have plenty of interaction, but it's intended to be constructive, productive, and positive interaction with the review team during the expedited review. Potentially, you also get priority review status, but most relevant to the CMC jocks is you get a rolling submission to the BLA. So we do not like to accept incomplete applications. In this situation, if there are outstanding studies, whether it be a non-compressible timeline such as stability, or whether it be issues associated with finding the appropriate manufacturing space, process characterization and validation, things like this, that can be submitted to the BLA. Now, this looks like, again, high fives, go team, but really it's still a 5 to 6 month review as opposed to a 10-month review. So really the difference is only like 4 months, okay? So the engineer and the scientist that goes, yes, well, move ahead, we can go ahead and we'll just keep adding to the BLA. You're still going to have a delay if that's not a complete package, in the appropriate window. Now, in these considerations in the interest of the public health, this is where the discussions go on about risk-based decision-making, what's acceptable risk, and regulatory considerations in moving these forward. Now for biologics, there's a special end game that came out in 2009. It was part of the Obamacare package, the Affordable Care Act, and was the Biologics Price Competition and Innovation Act. And what it created was the first amendment to the Public Health Service Act, probably in 30 years. It was an abbreviated licensure pathway for biological products shown to be biosimilars. And this is the biosimilar legislation. What do we mean by an abbreviated pathway? Well, excuse me. Biosimilars, we need to understand, is a very special program. And when we go through, biosimilars also have the same statutory expectations for characterization of product and process. Okay? What the biosimilars say is that you can leverage information from other sources. Okay? But you still need to have the appropriate characterization and plan for supplying the market. What do we mean by abbreviated licensure? If a biological product is demonstrated to be highly similar to an FDA licensed product, and again, the reference product, there can only be one. You can't pick several and average them. There can be one, and it has to be registered in the United States. May rely for licensure on existing scientific knowledge about safety, purity, and potency of the reference product. The new licensure pathway is still a BLA. It's not a generic. It's still a BLA. It's under 351K of the Act, lets it be registered based upon less than a full complete package. What that means is, briefly, my CMC data is so good, and my understanding of the molecule is so good, and my control of manufacturing is so good that I'm going to reference the clinical and animal data of the other product, okay? And I will have an abbreviated pathway. But where's the abbreviation? It's in the clinical side. Okay? It's not to say that you get to submit less for your plant, right? Okay. There is no abbreviated licensure pathway for related biologics that are not biosimilar. What do we mean by biosimilar? I'm not going to read this to you other than to stress the pivot point is no clinically meaningful differences. Now, biosimilars is a whole nother lecture. I'm sure you've heard a bunch of them, and I'm happy to give it some time. You know, there can be differences in formulation. There can be differences in final dosage form presentation. The question is, does the patient or the caregiver see a clinically relevant, clinically meaningful difference? And that's a bit of a game changer if you think about it, okay? This is the famous pyramid that gets shown in every biosimilars talk, but it's a really good one because it expresses this concept of the totality of evidence, that basically everything is based on structural and functional characterization. This is where the analytical chemists and the tools that we've been developing for years really come in and shine. Okay? And I'll also tell you from the stuff I've been seeing, this is catalyzing just almost a renaissance in the application of state-of-the-art analytical tools to older products and to newer products. It's really taking off. For one thing, originators don't want the follow-on people to know more about their molecule than they do. For another thing, the innovators derive benefit up front from fully characterizing that molecule. Human PK, clinical knowledge, clinical immunogenicity, they're all based upon that. So the area under the curve is the same. The more valid the CMC data, the more consideration comes in. So for instance, when it comes in, we'll get applications where we quickly go into the framework and we say, not a biosimilar. That's actually the most rapid review. Okay? We can also get one that says it's similar but not highly similar. Work on it, hang in there, we need more. There's highly similar, which lets you reference the clinical and animal data from the reference product. And then there's highly similar with fingerprint-like similarity. I was going to go into this, but I'm watching my time up here. In the interest of time, what I want to say is that what is fingerprint-like similarity is something that we understand so well that you don't have to do animal or clinical trials. Are there examples of it? Not yet. How cool is that to recognize a possibility and a concept in policy development? I think that's very cool, okay? And I have had fantastic discussions with academics and industry scientists all over the world about what do you think it's going to look like? What does fingerprint look like? And really, really good science is being driven by the concept of fingerprint-like similarity. This is where we are right now. You can do the math. We've had 13 different reference products for meetings with 53 sponsors. Do you think anybody's going after the same targets? Okay. We've had 22 INDs and no approvals as of this date. Now, the different end games really drive how you do end-in-mind process development, and breakthrough really drives that particularly. This didn't get a lot of press. The FDA Safety and Innovation Act, it's a big deal. Do not print it out and read it, you'll just hurt yourself. Go Google it and find some good attorney to give you a summary or something. There are a lot of them that are out there, okay? There's a lot of great stuff in this. About the time the Supreme Court was deciding whether or not Obamacare was gonna fly, that's what was on NPR, you know, this got passed, okay? And there's groovy stuff in it, okay? Particularly on supply chain, I encourage you to look at it. But one of the things that's in it is Title IX, Breakthrough Therapy Designation. It's for a serious condition where preliminary clinical evidence demonstrates improvement over available therapy. And the request for breakthrough designation is submitted against the IND. Ideally, no later than the end of phase 2. There are exceptions, and we will respond within 60 days. What is breakthrough? We may grant priority review. Sponsor may get a fast-track designation. I'm telling you because I have to live it. There's an all-hands-on-deck approach. You know, you have to do it in your job, right? We have to do it in our job. We have a breakthrough, saddle up, let's get after it. We work together to design the most effective and efficient development program. Frequently I say, and by the way, I stand by it, we're not here to be your QA department. We're not here to be your development department. Come to us and make a case and we'll assess the argument. When it comes to breakthroughs, sometimes we're there to help out your development department and we're there to help out your QA department because it's in the best interest of the public health to pull these things forward. There's a lot of consultation that goes on with these. There's a strong organizational commitment from CEDAR to the success of the program. What does this mean? Increased involvement of senior managers. Be careful what you wish for, you may get it, but there is increased involvement of senior managers. Division directors, office directors, and center leadership are all over this like hair on a bear. We get experienced review staff at the IND level, the sorts of review groups that typically engage at submission for BLA or NDA are pulled forward into the IND. There's a specific cross-disciplinary team leader assigned to work with the review team and coordinate external communication, increase frequency of meetings, and advice to move things forward. Again, this is embedded within this draft guidance, but I want to point out a sentence here in red. Now the whole guidance, this is what I'm pulling out for you. When a sponsor receives expedited drug development designation, so when you get it, you apply for it and you get it, there is an expectation at that time to tell us, so how are you going to make it and supply the market? Okay? There's not an expectation that you have a perfect crystal ball. There's not an expectation that development program's complete. It's not going to be complete, right? Because we've expedited and pulled it forward. But we need to hear the plan and understand what's going on with that. What do I mean by that? What is the status of the product and process development programs? We need to see it now. Where are you and what's going on? We want to know how are you going to specify the control strategies? And I'm not going to go through each one of these, but what do you see as being the CQAs for product and process intermediates? Process controls and release testing, container closure systems, linkages, tracking the process throughout the development chain, assessment of stability data, and most importantly, risk-based analyses of failure modes and residual uncertainty. It is inbounds to say, we just don't know, we haven't done that study yet. It is out of bounds to stop there. We don't know, we haven't done that study yet, but here's what we think is relevant. Here's what we think the risk is. Here's what we're going to do to mitigate it. Here's how we're going to move forward. Here is the plan. Because what you're asking for is for permission to market drug and interstate commerce to sick people, right? So the smashing breakthrough, and they are smashing breakthroughs. Man, breakthrough status drugs are exciting because they have a profound impact on the public health. Okay? But we need to be able to provide a reliable assurance, high level of assurance of a reliable supply of high quality drug. Now, the proposed manufacturing program should include the anticipated commercial operations. Please do not come in and say, I don't know, we've hired a guy to go find something. I have empathy. I do. I do. But that's not a good use of where we are and what you need to have happen. What are the site sourcing plans? What are the facilities issues? If it is not a finished decision, we understand, but just tell us. Where are you with regards to scale up, bridging, or comparability exercise? We want to see the life cycle process validation plan. We understand that the knowledge space is not fully mapped and multivariate analysis of the different performance parameters are not in play. We get that. What's the plan? You know? The role of the production quality management system. Are you turning on your quality systems? Are you modifying your quality systems? How's that going to play? Just tell us. Availability of the product at time of launch. Where are we going to be and what's the inventory? Plans for assurance of market supply, because these are matters that are profoundly relevant to the public health and to the state of the patient. If things are going to be in shortage right off the bat, they're going to be rationed, or if a patient runs the risk of losing the supply of their drug in the middle of a course of therapy, all this is taken into consideration. Okay? But we want to know the plan. And I have to tell you, we've seen some really good ones. And telling a good story is a competitive advantage. To be able to come in and explain, here's where we are, here's where we're going. Guys, here's the stuff that's missing, but here's our plan. Here's what we've learned from other products, other molecules. Here's our plan. And we can really move things forward. With regards to breakthrough therapy, we've had 92 requests. In the first year, 89 were acted upon in less than 60 days. Okay, yes, that's a brag. I work for FDA. To do that right off the bat? Yeah, okay. 31 requests were granted, 52 requests were denied. As of March, we're 39 of 39 in responding in less than 60 days on a breakthrough. 8 requests were granted and 15 were denied. Nobody's going to come forward and say that their kit is average. And what sometimes we see is, wow, I requested priority and accelerated review. I got nothing to lose to request breakthrough. Okay? And that's okay. We're all going to work together and we're going to learn what the criteria are. Not all of the breakthrough requests are genuinely unmet medical needs that have a profound impact on the public health. And we have to be serious about that because of the resource intensity that it takes to pull these things forward and get them to patients. What's a win? Gee, I could talk for an hour, but I won't. Finite and infinite games. Okay, a win is not submitting. A win is not approval. A win is a sustained supply of high-quality drug for the public. Okay, so now when we look at how we play this game, we can talk about individual pieces and molecules and their characteristics. We can talk about the development pathway. We can talk about our partnerships. We can go through, we can talk about strategic alliances and shared innovation, and we can talk about just getting out of the game. And that's okay. But one thing's for sure, it's a very, very important game. And we need to understand these end games, because if there is an opportunity to accelerate bringing medicines to sick people, if there is an opportunity to see the new and innovative technologies come forward faster, not just to provide innovative medicines to relieve pain and illness, but also to serve as an example to others on how it could be done and how it could be done better, faster, stronger, quicker, and better, isn't there a responsibility to do that? I don't know. I think so. And in order to do that, it cannot be done by milestone-based thinking. This is what I got to do next, and when I finish it, I'm going to do the next one. We need to understand where it is we want to end up, and work backwards from there. And when we start to see the glimmers of possibility of success in the clinic, we don't wait. What are my possibilities, and how can I build in this end-in-mind thinking into understanding my drug supply chain, the characterization of the product, and the characterization of my process, so we can get this stuff out there forward. This is the master game. You ever play a video game where it goes tutorial, basic, intermediate, advanced? You're adding rules, you're adding constraint, you're moving faster, and you're dealing with more residual uncertainty. This is the master game. It's a master game that's going to make a difference. Thank you very much for your attention.